From Caterpillars to Butterflies, episode 30, How to Tell If You're Settling.
Welcome to the From Caterpillars to Butterflies Personal Growth Podcast. Just like the caterpillar is destined to become a butterfly, you too are designed for a beautiful transformation. This is where you go to grow and transform your life. And now, here's your host, Certified Life Coach, Charlene Dior.
Hey, this is Charlene, your host of the From Caterpillars to Butterflies Personal Growth Podcast. If it can help you grow, we will likely be covering it right here. Welcome to today's show. It has been a while. I missed you. So I took the month of June off to work on my book, which I have completed a good first draft, and to vacation. I went to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and that was a much needed vacation. So now I'm back and ready to jump right back into things. And so today's topic is how to tell if you're settling. I think sometimes we find ourselves in situations, I know I have, where I thought maybe I could be settling, but I wasn't quite sure because nothing's ever perfect. Right? And I said before in the episode on being content that there is a such thing as dissatisfaction inside of satisfaction. It's the yin and yang of life, right? So you know that you're going to be dissatisfied in some ways in your relationship, in your career, in your body, right? But how do you know if you're settling? I'm going to help you figure that out today on today's episode, okay? So the first way, and I think it's really one of the biggest ways, one of the biggest things that you can do for yourself to discern if you're settling or if you're simply compromising, is to understand your needs. And I think that a lot of times we don't know our needs. We know them, but we've never articulated them. And so when we haven't put a name to our needs, it's very hard to, one, communicate those needs to other people, and two, to also discern when the need isn't being met, right? Because you've never even named it. So you want to really get crystal clear on what your needs are first. A few episodes ago, I talked about, or really one of the earlier episodes, having balance in your life. And so that means looking at the different areas of life, relationships, health, money, etc., and making sure that you're putting the right levels of energy and effort into the buckets that matter to you. So when you want to find out what your needs are, that's a good place to go, is to go back to the balance exercise and look at those different buckets and ask yourself, what are the core needs that I have for this area of my life? You don't want 10 needs. You want the core, 3, 5 at max. What do you need? What do you need in a romantic relationship? What do you need in your life's work? What do you need in your spirituality? And once you're clear on what you need, and you want to make sure that you are paying attention to the areas of life, because your needs are likely different for different people and different roles and different areas. So this is not like my core needs in life, because then you might say air, water, shelter, right? Like we're not looking at those needs. So you want to pinpoint the needs and target them for the different areas of your life. And once you have them, then you want to map out what it looks like to have that need fulfilled. So in a romantic relationship with a man, one of my core needs is to feel secure. I need to feel safe enough to love, to be vulnerable. I need to know that he's not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere, this is not a fling. And so whatever effort and love I put in, I feel confident and safe and secure that it's the right investment of my love, right? And so what that looks like to me, what it looks like for me to feel secure and safe in a relationship, is it looks like me being put first behind God, right? And so a lot of times what happens is that there are a lot of things that are happening in your relationship, in my relationships, when I think back over them, right, that they seem very trivial. And that's why I couldn't really get clear on what I should be doing, staying or going, or what's the deal, right? Because the issues in and of themselves, they seem very trivial. So one time I was dating this guy and I had texted him and he wasn't responding, but he was on Facebook. He had posted pictures of soup he made for dinner, and people were commenting on his pictures of soup, and he was commenting back, but he was not talking to his girlfriend, right? And so that seems super trivial. Like, Charlene, you're gonna make a big deal about a text message? Like, that's dumb, right? It seems trivial, but when you pay attention and you dig deeper, especially if it's repetitive behavior and it shows up in different areas, what it really was symbolic of is that he didn't put me first and I didn't feel secure. I didn't feel secure. I was confused oftentimes. Like, what's the deal with this? What are we? I'm confused because you're talking about soup on Facebook and, you're not really putting me first, and that makes me feel very insecure, right? And so it might seem very trivial what the issue is, but it could be indicative of a bigger problem, of a need that's not being met. So when I think about what does it look like for me to feel secure, part of it looks like answering my text messages and my phone calls. All right, that's what part of it looks like. It shows that you put me first. And so that's one way that you can find out if you're settling, is because if your needs aren't being met, then you're likely to be settling. If you're having an issue over something that seems very trivial in your mind, and so that's why you're thinking you can't discern if it's you settling in a relationship that isn't for you, or if it's you tripping, then dig deeper and see, like, is this indicative of a void that's being filled in my needs, right? And I would say that too, to men or to women, right? If your partner is tripping over something that seems trivial, it might just be that they can't articulate that you're not meeting a need. So a lot of times we shut people down over things that we don't agree with, but they might have a hard time explaining to you, or even being aware of it for themselves, that the problem is you're not meeting one of their core needs. So pay attention to that. Because if you want to be with that person, then you have to meet their needs. And if you can't meet their needs, or if it requires too much of you, then you probably can't be with that person. But don't shut them down over little issues, because the issues really might be indicative of a bigger problem. So when you're clear on what you need and you're aware, then you can articulate those needs to yourself and get more clear on what it really is that you're feeling, because you know something's wrong or something's off, but you just can't really tell, like, is it me tripping or is it me settling? But if you start to understand and know what your needs are, then that will help you decide, right? So get crystal clear on your needs. And then when you're wondering, am I settling? Figure it out. Are my needs being met here? And if your needs aren't being met, there's a good chance that you're settling. And if your needs are being met, then maybe you are making a big deal over something that shouldn't really be a big deal, right? Because there's always dissatisfaction inside of satisfaction. If your needs aren't being met, I'm not saying that you should go and quit your job tomorrow or get divorced tomorrow or whatever, right? But it's something, it's now something that you are cognizant of, and you can start to have honest conversations about that with whomever, your partner or your boss or your whomever. So get clear on what you need in the different areas of your life. The other way, number 2, that I have for you for discerning if you're settling or not, is if you are in a situation that is good enough. Settling for good enough. Because maybe you don't even know if great exists. Or maybe you don't even know if great is possible for you. So you settle for good enough. That might be good enough in your body, right? Like you might look at yourself and say, you know what, I really don't look that bad. Actually, I'm kind of cute today in these jeans, right? And so you settle for good enough when a part of you really does want to lose some weight, but then you're like, but I really ain't that bad though, really. I'm thick. It's cool. So when you say to yourself that you're just, it's not that bad, or I can handle this, this is actually kind of good, then it's likely that you could be settling for something greater. So settling for good enough. Making excuses is a sign that you could potentially be settling. So I'm going to go back to relationships because that's where settling has often come up for me, is excuses, making excuses for the other person. And a part of what I have struggled with is that when you say that you're settling for someone, it really kind of has a negative connotation to say I'm settling in my relationship, right? And I always want to protect people and their esteem and their ego. And so I don't really want to walk around thinking that I'm settling for the person that I'm dating. It just doesn't feel right. And so it's a part of the reason why I couldn't really grasp that I was in a good enough situation. And even though I really wanted a great situation, I wanted great, but I was in a good enough, and I just didn't want to say that it was just good enough and I was kind of settling because I didn't like the implications that had on who he was as a person. So sometimes we don't really want to acknowledge that we're settling because it sounds horrible. Like, you think you're better than him? What? It sounds horrible. So I struggle with that. And I know that people's egos are fragile. I know that people, a lot of times when they're off track or they're insecure or they get depressed or whatever, a lot of times it's because of things that they've been told about themselves. And this guy was divorced. And so I think that divorce added to his insecurities a bit. And so I don't want to walk around saying you're not really good enough for me. I'm settling for you, right? But what I did do is make a lot of excuses for him. So we barely saw each other, right? We saw each other like twice a month, every other weekend. And, and I was always talking about it because I just really couldn't figure it out. Like, man, am I settling in this situation where I only see this guy twice a month? Like, I mean, I really don't need to see you every day because I have my own life and my own goals, but twice a month just kind of seems, and so my friends would be like, well, why do you guys only see each other twice a month? And I would say, well, because he has kids and, he has his kids every other weekend. So that really throws us off, the other weekend, right? So when he doesn't have his kids, then that weekend we hang out, And my friends would be like, well, what's he doing the other 5 days of the week? Right? So I'm making excuses about why he's not putting effort in. And my friends are calling me out on it because it doesn't hold up. Right? And so sometimes you're settling and you know that you're settling because you're making excuses that don't really hold up. Like, that really isn't a good reason why that's happening. It really isn't a good reason why your partner isn't meeting your needs or why your employer isn't giving you what you need. It's not a good excuse. So if you're making excuses for your situation, there's a good chance that you are, in fact, settling. Number 4. You have ideas inside of yourself that you're not pursuing. There is no limit to the number of people who say that they want something and then they just do nothing. Like, if you're having ideas that you're sitting on, then you're settling. Especially if it's the same idea that keeps coming up for you over and over and over and over again. Like, you keep thinking of it. You keep dreaming about it. And then you keep sitting on your butt. Like, you're settling. And it could be because you're afraid that you don't know how it can happen for you, or you don't know what to do to get it to happen, or you don't think you have the skills or the abilities to do it. But if you're constantly dreaming of something and you're never taking any action to actually get yourself to that point, you're settling. You're settling for the life that you have because it's easy, because you don't have to stretch yourself, because you don't have to figure out how to get started, because it's what you know. You're comfortable. This is good enough. But if you have ideas and you pursue them, then you're always working towards, which you're always going to have ideas. You're never going to get somewhere and then just stop having ideas. And if you're always pursuing them, then you're always moving your life forward. But if you're sitting on them, then you're really just kind of settling for what you have already. Number 5 is not giving your best. You're settling for your life or your situation when you are not giving your best. And that kind of sums up the previous 4, right? Like, you have ideas that you're not pursuing. Perhaps you're making excuses for yourself for why you're not going back to school or why you're not pursuing that job or business, right? So you're making excuses for your own self that don't hold weight. You are settling for good enough. And so just in general, being someone who just doesn't give their best. You just give what the bare minimum needs to be in order to stay afloat. Not giving your best, knowing that there is more inside of you to give and to contribute and to invest, is a sign that you're settling. Why aren't you giving what else you have to give? You're settling. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." And no one knows that better than you. No one knows if you're settling for less than what you're capable of. You know that. And if you feel that way, then it's really time to just give more. If you're capable of more, it's time for you to be more and to give more. And, the last thing that I would say about how to know if you're settling is if you have to ask the question, am I settling? You're probably settling. Because when I found myself in situations where I was settling, I really wanted to talk it out all the time. Anyone who would listen to me, I would talk about it with them. I talked about it with my life coach about it. I talked about it with my girlfriends about it. I kept trying to wrap my head around if I was in fact settling. So if you're wondering if you're settling and you wonder it all the time and you can't shake it loose and you want to talk about it to anyone who will help you process it and discern it, there's a good chance that, you're settling. You're settling. Urban Dictionary has the definition of settling as the act of giving up. The act of giving up. So you're settling if you are giving up on something else you'd rather have. Would you rather have something else in your life, in your relationship, in your finances, in your health? Would you rather have something else? And if the answer is yes, are you working towards it? Are you working towards the something else you'd rather have? And if you say no, then you're settling. You're settling. So I hope that helps you discern if you're settling versus if you're compromising versus if you're tripping or if he's tripping or she's tripping. It's really important to get clear on these things because we're talking about creating a life you love, transforming the life you have from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And if you're settling, there's always going to be this gnawing feeling that something isn't right. There's always going to be this gnawing feeling inside of you, tugging at you. And it's very hard to create a life you love if you're constantly being reminded by the nagging feeling that you wanted more and you could have had more, but you gave up on it. Never settle. Understand what you need. Understand your non-negotiables. Understand what you want. Know what you're capable of doing and giving. And give your best and do your best. And don't give up on what you want. Don't give up on what you need. Don't give up on your dreams. Just don't ever settle.
And now, a moment of meditation. If you're not driving, cooking, or doing anything that requires your full attention, take a deep breath and close your eyes as Charlene leads you into an inspiring meditation.
Take another deep breath in and exhale. And repeat after me. I deserve the best. I'm worthy to have my needs met at all times. I deserve my biggest dreams. I'm worthy to have my needs and wants fulfilled. I deserve the best. I will never give up on having the best. I'm worthy of having my needs met. I am willing to give up the good to go for the great. I'm willing to give up the good to go for the great. I constantly pursue my ideas. I constantly pursue my dreams. I am someone who goes for great. I am someone who never settles. I am worthy to have my needs met. I deserve to have my needs and wants fulfilled. I deserve to be happy. I am worthy of all that I desire. I deserve to have my needs met and fulfilled. I do not settle. I do not give up on what I want. I constantly pursue my biggest dreams. I'm worthy to have my needs met. I am not a settler. I am a go-getter. I deserve to have my needs met. On the count of 3, open your eyes, feeling assured and confident that the needs that you have are important and valid, and you should never settle for less than you desire and need. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes, feeling confident, feeling secure, feeling a resolve, an unbreakable resolve to never settle for good, to always be willing to go for great, to never stay in situations that don't honor and meet your needs and your wants because you are worthy. And take that resolve and that commitment with you for the rest of the day and the rest of your life. Until next time, grow on purpose.
Thanks for listening to the From Caterpillars to Butterflies podcast, your one-stop shop for all things personal growth. For today's show notes and even more tools and resources to help you transform the life you have into the life you love, go to www.fromcaterpillarstobutterflies.com.